What's up, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to this live broadcast session of Mikasa Sukasa, and I have a very, very special guest. Many of you already know who he is, but some of you may not know. This is Jimmy Dore of the Jimmy Dore Show and the Aggressive Progressives. What's going on, Jimmy? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, man. So I went on your show, actually, I guess it was a while ago, about 4 months ago. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. We talked about some good stuff. So I just wanted to publicly thank you for that. And basically, I wanted to bring you on to get your feel about first the presidential primary candidates thus far, and what do you think about the messages that you've seen, and how do you feel like the field is shaping out? Who do you like right now?
Well, I think an unbeatable ticket is Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders is an unbeatable ticket. And the reason why is because they do that thing that they claim that the corporatists and the neoliberals like Hillary Clinton claim that you have to do to win elections. They actually appeal to people other than people on the left wing. So that's the whole thing, like, oh, we got to move to the center. Well, it turns out they actually appealed to people on the right by not moving to the center, by Tulsi Gabbard standing up against the military-industrial complex and not taking corporate money. The same thing with Bernie Sanders, not taking corporate money. And that they've actually attracted people on the right because they feel they can trust them and they're honest. And it also helps that Tulsi is a two-tour veteran from Iraq. So she's got the bona fides to stand up against the military-industrial complex. And in her announcement for president, she actually said that.
Yeah.
She named the military. You never hear a politician do that. So again, now Bernie is not above criticism. He's got, he's got flaws. Great men have great flaws. Same thing with Tulsi. She's not above criticism. Nobody's above criticism. But right now, I'm going to say the ticket that's the best to beat Trump and to make a big difference once they get there would be Tulsi and Bernie.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that I feel like any other combination is actually a guaranteed loss. There's this idea floated around that Elizabeth Warren has a good chance to beat Trump. I just don't believe that.
You know what? I'm not. As far as Elizabeth Warren, she has a lot of work to do. Put it that way, to overcome how she let Trump bait her into that. Into taking that. I mean, that she's already apologized for it. That was just that I guess maybe she saw, because Barack Obama finally, after years of Trump hounding him, released his long form birth certificate. It didn't really make a difference. They just moved on to something. I want to see his college record. So you would think she would learn from that didn't really, that was all show. They didn't really care. And so that's, I don't know. I don't know if she overcomes that. Plus, she's like the third or fourth choice of progressives, because when time came to stand up for Bernie, she didn't. Tulsi did.
Yeah. And that's like I said, that was a defining moment for everybody, because for example, Nina Turner, who we all love, but people forget Nina, before that moment where she joined Bernie, would have been considered an establishment candidate. And she is very aware of that. Tulsi, obviously, same thing. And they all kind of reach this climax where it's like, okay, here's where the rubber meets the road. Which side are you going to pick? And I think that just has never really sat well with progressives. I think some people are a little bit more forgiving than others, but I know the hardcore progressives have never forgiven Elizabeth Warren for that. I know a lot of people of color have never forgiven her for basically trying to co-opt the marginalized experience as a Native American when she's never really dealt with that, just for some political points. And it's basically helped further her career to get her to where she's at. She's directly benefited from that. Now, I do have one question about Elizabeth Warren. For the progressives, what would you say to progressives who like her, despite the fact, and are trying to make Bernie comparisons, despite the fact that she still takes corporate money, she still takes AIPAC money, and she still does cater to AIPAC and those types of special interests?
You're referring to Elizabeth Warren?
Elizabeth Warren, yes.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a lot of, that's why she's the third or fourth choice of progressives, right? So she does some great work, and she highlights a lot of things. The Consumer Protection Bureau, is that what it's called? Anyway, that was her. She championed that. And again, she's not she's a mixed bag, right? And I think there's stronger progressives out there, but I think she's an ally, definitely. And I think that she could probably be moved on things, right? I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but she's not my first choice. I mean, I would be way happier with her than Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees with that because she's a lot more malleable. Hillary Clinton, when confronted with the idea of ending fracking, she looked at them like they were idiots. Like, no, I would never do that. Yeah. And Elizabeth Warren literally leans with the popular opinion. And she was probably convinced at some point that Hillary was the popular opinion because they deceived themselves into believing that.
The thing about Elizabeth Warren that really sticks out to me like a sore thumb, and the thing that I brought up in my critique of her is that people love to, show videos of her wagging her finger and really giving it a talking down to as a bank CEO for criminality, right? Like what Wells Fargo did. But what I point out when everyone is getting their jollies, I mean, it is fun to watch her do that. I get a vicarious thrill to watch her chew out these bank CEOs, and she knows that too. So that's why she does it. What she doesn't do is then recommend they get prosecuted. And that's what I think really reveals her to. I get the sneaky feeling that half the reason she's doing that is to grandstand, because if she really meant the word she was saying, she would want those people prosecuted.
Yeah, no, that's literally my main complaint about Warren is like, okay, I'm glad you can wag your finger and you can point at the obvious, but for a long time, there was legitimately no hope of taking these people down. So she could do that out in the public eye, say, look at what I did, but never have to hold anybody accountable. But I feel like we've transitioned now. We want to see people being held accountable because we all don't like banks. We know what your power is as a senator or as a legislator. And if you're not going to use your voice to bring about some palpable, substantial change, then all the finger wagging doesn't really mean anything. Speaking of finger wagging, how do you feel about Kamala Harris, Jimmy?
Hey, I don't think there's nothing gets. What Hillary Clinton lost because the working minorities didn't come out for her in the working class minorities didn't come out for her in Wisconsin and Michigan, and Kamala Harris. I don't see her inspiring those people to get off the couch either, because there's videotape after videotape after videotape of her not only giggling and bragging about prosecuting poor brown and black people. And there's also video of her saying we need more prisons than schools. Yeah. And it's, I mean, that I don't know how you overcome that.
Yeah. Look,
and unless you're running if Trump said that, you could go, okay, that excites his base. So what she has is she does the exact opposite. She depresses the vote on the base. And that's a losing recipe again. She'll lose.
Yeah, I don't think that people really seem to forget how electoral politics works. They're very short-sighted, like the Democratic Party specifically. They're like, let's all of a sudden make Kamala Harris black when she's never been this. He wasn't even raised around her black family, like legitimately. So there's some real life consequences that come with that, right? You don't necessarily know how to cater to the black base, one, and it's showing. She just tried to give Aretha Franklin a congressional medal? What? Like, come on, right? So there's that. But also, yeah, you may be able to win the South with the black vote in the primary. Those states, let's be realistic, 90% of them don't mean a damn thing when it comes to the general, because they're going to go to Trump no matter how many black people live there. Like, and this is just a reality. And so I think short-sighted.
But Cory Booker also announced, so that's going to theoretically. How much do you think that will split the black vote?
I think actually it's going to split it significantly, because I think that there is more real support, unfortunately, for Cory Booker than there is for Kamala Harris. And that's just from my legitimate observations. They're
both the darlings of the donor class.
Yeah, that's exactly. So she's going to have to compete with Cory Booker for that black vote. I think that the plan is for Cory to run as long as humanly possible and then hand his pledged delegates off to Kamala Harris at the convention. I think that's what the plan is. And I do think
I agree with you, by the way. Yeah, I didn't think about it until you just said that. That makes sense,
I
actually.
think he'll pull out before California also, because they don't want the narrative that Tulsi or Kamala wins, or excuse me, Tulsi or Bernie wins California. When in reality, like the truth of the matter is, more people, Bernie's more popular than both of them, but more people knew who Tulsi was in California than Kamala. Like, and that's just a fact. Unless they hated her, and if they knew her, they hated her.
In California, I mean, Kamala is the senator from here, so I mean, she's pretty well known.
Well, yeah, she's well known now, but that because they literally catered to the idea of Kamala being this black civil rights activist candidate. But like before that, I didn't know who Kamala was, and a couple of my activist friends were telling me about her, like, "Oh, Kamala's horrible." I was like, "Well, I don't know who she is. How bad could she possibly be?" But then you realize they had to probably hide who you were pretty well if you're going to be a black prosecutor and eventually become senator, you know? So now, what do you think about this idea of Tulsi Gabbard, like the rawness of her campaign thus far?
Well, she obviously is the one who scares the shit out of the establishment the most.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's because she is viable, because when she stands up against war, she has the gravitas to do that. She was just on a panel yesterday morning on Morning Joe, sitting around talking to 6 people who probably pushed the Iraq war. You know, you remember MSNBC, if you tell the truth about war, you get fired. They fired Phil Donahue, and here they are. And they went along with every war after. Libya, they went along with Syria. They're going along with Venezuela. And NBC News is smearing Tulsi Gabbard harder than they're smearing Bernie right now. And that shows you that they're afraid of her more, because she actually resonates with people, and she's actually using the words military-industrial complex. Guess who funds MSNBC's news? Guess who pays Joe Scarborough's?
What, Boeing?
The military-industrial complex, oil companies, and Wall Street. And that's why they are propagandists.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I 100% agree. I said the same thing. I said that's the one thing for me personally. Not everybody feels this way, and I can understand why they would want to wait to see. But I'm leaning actually more towards Tulsi Gabbard, because my barometer tends to decide like who I'm going to cheer for based off of who the establishment media decides to attack. That's a
good litmus test. Yeah.
You know, and it's like I can deal with imperfection. I'm not really, you know, I'm not looking for the perfect candidate. But when I watched Tulsi Gabbard on MSNBC twice yesterday, when she said, no, you're not going to push Russian propaganda or try to say that I'm the chosen candidate by Russia using an illegitimate source and then think you're going to get away with it. Not only did she push back, but she did it in such a calm presidential manner. And then she talked about how dangerous it was that they were doing so, which we haven't seen out of basically any progressive thus far. And I feel like that, in my opinion, goes a long way. And then with the whole the Syria thing, where she's like, I'm not going to call Assad the enemy for what? And then they use the lie, oh, Assad slaughters his own people. And that is a lie. Mattis came out and said, there's no proof of that. And he's the most warmongering, you know, bloodthirsty animal out there. And he even said there was no proof of this and they were going to look for some. So that just shows you how dangerous Tulsi is to these.
Niko, I don't know how old you are, but I remember this exact scenario played out with the Iraq war. If you were against the Iraq invasion, they called you a Saddam apologist. Why are you siding with Al Qaeda? Why are you you're either with us or against us? That was what our president said. So, and they're doing the exact same thing today. If you don't go along with the government narrative of interventionist wars, then you're a traitor to our country. And this shows you how full of it those people are.
Yeah.
So they say that Trump is a Russian puppet, a Putin puppet, and they just print that. I mean, this is every news organization prints that, and then Trump is for a coup in Venezuela because he wants to steal the oil in Venezuela for our American corporations. Well, also. Putin is against us stealing the oil in Venezuela. And so if you're for Trump going into Venezuela, which a lot of people are, well, aren't you now a Putin puppet because you're going along with Trump? And if you go against Trump, you're going literally along with Russia. So now no matter which side of the Venezuela question you're on, you can be called a Russian Putin puppet, which shows you how ridiculous what's happening right now. And I didn't live through the first Red Scare, but I can't imagine it being actually worse than this one, where hacks who are for the Iraq war can then smear a two-tour veteran who stands up and tells the truth about interventionist wars, that they're always for natural resources, they're always for faux reasons, and she's standing up against them, and they're calling her an Assad apologist and a Putin puppet, and she's heard candidacies being pushed by Russia. So this is what the media does. This is when they reveal that they're not on the side of the people. They're on the side of the people who fund them, which is the military-industrial complex. And that's why guys like Brian Williams still have a show, no matter how many times he gets caught lying, because he's always lying at the behest of more war.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And like the thing about the paradox of it's like if you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. The funniest part to me was when the whole Venezuelan coup thing started and nobody realized that Guaido was a right wing, like he was basically Trump. Like, and then you see the Nancy Pelosi's, Kamala, like all the neoliberals, like we recognize this guy. I'm like, hold on. I thought y'all hated Trump. So why do y'all now support this? Also, I thought we didn't like foreign interference. Wasn't that the whole thing about our elections? And now we're like, we're going to skip whatever process they have and just say, you're the president now. And nobody has a problem with that.
Max Blumenthal has done a great video with the Gray Zone Project, where he went into the halls of Congress and he went up to each congressperson and he would ask them, hey, do you think it's okay that we're meddling in Venezuela's politics?
What do they say?
And just watch they would all be like, well, if we're meddling, it's for good reason. Some of them said that.
So a lot of them don't even know what the hell's going on, basically.
So he found one guy who was a Congressman Clay, and he was African-American, and he got it right. He said, no, we keep doing this in South America and Central America, and it always turns out horrible. We got to stop doing this stuff. We got to stop. And so Max Blumenthal said, well, are you going to raise this issue? He goes, this isn't my issue. I'm on the finance committee. I don't care about this. So the one guy who got it right isn't going to raise his voice about it.
Well, you also have to remember, if you're a black person in the Democratic Party, then you better shut up until you're told to talk. And this isn't per myself. This is, Nina Turner talks about this. Donna Brazile talks about this on Tim Black's show and says she's even been a victim of it. So,
really?
Yeah, during that, it was a pretty groundbreaking interview. And she literally said that there's for black people, specifically black women in the Democratic Party, there is this idea that you get your position based off of you behaving the way they tell you to.
Yeah. So the amount of falling in line you do.
Exactly. And once again, are we surprised? Because any attack against Kamala Harris now is championed as an attack against a woman of color because she's a woman of color, and it couldn't possibly be her horrific record again. Like, but Nina Turner is a traitor. So why is not every attack by the Democratic Party on Nina Turner not viewed in the same light as every attack by literally the entire world on Kamala Harris?
So at least they can't. If we back Tulsi this time, at least they can't call us sexists.
Oh no, it's already started because what they didn't say. I even talked to somebody yesterday on Twitter who swore Tulsi is white, and I was like, no, look at her. She's clearly not white.
Her dad wasn't allowed to drink from whites only water fountains. What does that tell you?
Right. So that's what I was literally about. I'm like, if you want to be 100% honest, Kamala and Tulsi are about the same amount of women of color, except for Kamala's well, actually, I would say probably Tulsi might be a shade darker because she lives in Hawaii. But their experiences with the black community, Kamala has maybe a marginal advantage there. Marginal. But she moved to Montreal. We lived in the richest community in Montreal, never really had the black experience. And it shows with the way she prosecuted. She didn't care. So So what do you make of this idea or the whole Bernie is just the evil white guy, Tulsi is a non-factor, Kamala is the anointed one? Like, do you feel like there is any truth to it? Like, I mean, yeah, she's the anointed one, but from what you've observed, 'cause I know you observe closely, do you feel like there's legitimate truth, or do you feel like there's just like a lot of bot and a lot of smoke puffing for Kamala Harris?
I mean, Kamala Harris is, I can't read someone's mind or heart, but my gut instinct is what I rely on. You know, my BS detector is what I think is what I call it. Has served me well as a comedian, and has served me well as a, you know, YouTuber or whatever it is you call what I do. I question the veracity of her. I question the sincerity. I question her sincerity. Put it that way. I don't buy it for a minute. And if she really cared about, you know, the things she says, you know, she goes, oh, well, she likes to tout what she did with mortgage fraud. Hey, you didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin, and everybody knows it, and you don't have a reason for it. Steve Mnuchin wouldn't be where he was if he's in jail like he's supposed to be. She's a part of the neoliberal class. She's just another Eric Holder. She's not what she claims to be. And she's already backtracking on single payer. She already backtracked on it.
24 hours. Took her 24 hours to do it.
24 hours she backtracked on it.
I want to say less than 24 hours, actually.
You know, you look at her record when she had power and instead of wielding it to help people, she wielded it to scare the hell out of poor Black and brown people and made truancy a crime she wanted to prosecute.
Bragged about it at that. And I think this, once again, people say, well, she was doing her job as a prosecutor. You know what? That would be a great excuse if it wasn't for the long history of her corrupting the criminal justice process in order for her to achieve her goals. Because then that usually can be linked back to some money that got donated to her. And we find out, of course, that law enforcement agencies and police departments had donated to her. Right. So, like, you know, it's like, yeah, if she just did her job, you can be a progressive prosecutor. I've seen a couple of progressive prosecutors in Miami where they stood up and said, we can't keep prosecuting people for a cop pulling someone over because he smelled marijuana, when if you don't pull him over because you saw some Percocet residue because they have a prescription of Percocet, you can't pull them over for that. So why would you be able to pull them over for this unless it was for, financial reasons because you're being told to meet a quota? So there are progressive prosecutors. The idea that there isn't is a lie. The idea that she was doing her job and that was it is a bold-faced lie. And the fact that she would lie about that says a lot about her.
The prosecutor in Philadelphia who just got reelected ran against the police department.
Wow, I did not know that.
He was a Black Lives Matter lawyer. He's represented Black Lives Matter against the police department. He's very progressive. And now he has his DA attorneys. If you're going to prosecute someone for a crime, you have to show how much it's going to cost to incarcerate this person for the sentence you recommend. And then we have to decide whether we think it's worth it.
Wow.
That's pretty progressive.
That's how, if you want to have a progressive Black prosecutor to run, that would probably be the idea that I would be going for. Somebody who realizes the impact of these policies on in the criminal justice system on the Black community and makes corrections to it, not propagate it, not propagate the corruption. But she once again broke the record for Black males being convicted in California, as California was, interestingly enough, on the way down as far as their prison industrial complex was concerned. She boosted it back up because that's what the money told her to do. So her office also argued in court that they couldn't release prisoners from their overcrowding prisons, even though they were ordered to by a federal judge, and they didn't. They ignored the ruling, and they argued in court the reason why they ignored the ruling was because it would upset their prison labor system too much. And that's a fact. They went to court twice and argued that, and then the LA Times reported that was happening, and that's when Kamala Harris that's when her office stopped doing that, and she pretended she didn't know they were doing that. She said, oh my God, I had no idea what my attorneys were arguing. Like, they never ran this by me. You're the attorney general.
You're the attorney general.
You didn't know.
You're not, first of all, you're not making sure you reduce the prison population. That's not your job. No, it wasn't. Her job was to maintain it.
Like, this was like, you're telling me there was an order from a federal judge and you didn't deal with it directly. Like,
that is, yeah.
Like, you're the state's attorney general. A federal judge says, do this. You're the one who's going to be forced. Yeah, your office, does the legwork. But as attorney general, she should have been in court during that. But of course, it was probably to save face so she can then have plausible deniability to say, oh, I don't know what to.
Yes, that's exactly what she did. Oh, there's gambling here. I'm shocked to find out there's gambling.
That's very, very true. So are you excited about the idea of Bernie's impending announcement?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I'm excited to see what new ways they're going to come up to smear him. They just released a video of him shirtless in Russia, singing "This land is your land, this land is my land." as if that was supposed to scare the hell out of everybody. First of all, he looks, Lee Camp made the observation, he looks exactly as old 30 years ago as he does today.
I know, I say that all the time. Like, yo, has he been old forever?
Yes.
Like, he's like a wise sage.
and basically, it was during the Cold War. They had a sister city, Burlington, Vermont, which when he was mayor, and then a sister city in Russia, and they would have the people. You know, that, remember, I don't know, you're too young to remember, but that was a big thing about the Cold War. Everybody was trying to remind everybody that it's the Russian government, not the Russian people. It's the people are good people, and that's why we had exchanges, and that's what that was all about. And if you watch the video, that's about as incriminating as being seen at a meet and greet at a Yakov Smirnoff concert.
Yeah, but that's not how they want it. It's like when Tulsi was asked, when she went to Syria and then she met with everybody, and then Assad asked her to be there because, you know, hey, you're a diplomat, you know, you're a congresswoman. Can we talk to figure out if we can, you know, stop bombing my country and killing the people that are here? If that would be, you know, can we talk? And everybody's like, oh, that means you're an apologist. How dare you try to listen to the other side and find common ground so that he can stop seeing his people be killed in the street by our bombs. You crazy woman.
People forget that they did the exact same thing. The people who opposed the Iraq war, they forget that they did that. And the thing about Libya, that was like a war that flew under the radar. Nobody really ever even talked about Libya. So they didn't have to bother to smear anybody over it. But they have to smear people over Syria because guess what? Muammar Gaddafi didn't have a friend in China or a friend in Russia that could put a check on American Western power, but Assad did. So Assad has a friend in Russia and Iran, and so they could put a check on Western imperialism. And so that's why everybody knows about this war, and that's why they have to smear people who are telling the truth about it.
And you know, I do remember in 2012, they tried, well, not tried, they did almost pretty much successfully manufacture consent. And I know because I was even guilty of assuming whenever I heard Gaddafi's name, it was programmed into my head back then. I was 22, 23,
me too.
just got out the military.
Me too.
I know. Then I started like doing research, and then the things they don't talk about with Gaddafi, like he was the elected chairman of the African Union, also doesn't get discussed. The fact that there's an African Union and he was an elected chairperson, and that same year, a couple of months before he died, Gaddafi actually, they said they came to agreement and stepped down so the United States can stay out of Africa. They now have no reason to be here if you're down. He humbly said, you know what, fine. That was when everything ramped up because it was never about getting Gaddafi out of power.
Right.
It was about destabilizing the region.
There's lots of different theories about what it was exactly. Again, it was just us flexing our imperialistic power, and you know, people say that he was going off the euro, wanted to go off to the dinar. He wanted to have Africa, he wanted his own monetary system, and that was a big reason why too. And so I'm sure there's lots of, and all of them are economic. I'm sure there's lots of reasons, and they're all economic.
But we said it was about the people, which is why there's slavery in Libya now. Slave trade right now.
We created a failed state, a hellhole for people.
But let's go to Venezuela.
And now, and by the way, guess who's putting a check on our power to do that in Venezuela? What we did in Libya. The African Union just came out against us doing this, and Russia and China. So again, that's the only people putting a check on our power. And so you'll notice there's going to be a lot of more propaganda in the news against China and probably the African Union. There definitely already is about China because them and Russia, Russia are the only ones that can put a check on the West's imperialism right now.
Absolutely. So I think they're going to be a little bit tepid when it comes to mentioning the African Union, because then you can't dehumanize Africans in the way that they have forever. You know, that's why nobody knows about the United States involvement in Somalia, Sudan. They can't continue to demonize these people. You know, they have to push the idea that refugees are going to come and take over like they did in Europe. And they don't know that refugees already live in Minnesota, already live in Vermont, already live in Wisconsin. If you've ever been to the Minneapolis airport, you know they're already here. They just
I think what's important also, Niko, for people to remember, whenever they hear something from the Director of National Intelligence, that guy was a WMD pusher, Dan Coates. So I mean, Rachel Maddow, CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, they'll say, well, the director of national intelligence says. They never say discredited former conspiracy theorist, WMD guy, director of national intelligence. So that's the thing people need to look out for. And that's what the media doesn't tell you. And that's why the media sucks. And that's why people like you and me have a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, a lot of people don't know that because they see who you are and what you've become now. They don't remember the old angry comedian from Chicago who used to just yell across the table at everybody else at TYT during panels and say, "You guys are out of your mind if you think Hillary is even acceptable." They see the Jimmy Dore right now. How has that experience been from you? Being, the guy on the end of the table yelling at everybody and then eventually finding out, oh shit, I was right, unfortunately, and seeing your following just explode after that.
It was a great ride. I loved it. I loved the way we all came together in support of Bernie Sanders, and we were the only place that you could get actual, honest coverage of a progressive politician. And then later it was revealed that MSNBC literally had an order that they weren't allowed to cover Bernie Sanders. And Ed Schultz actually tried to, and he got fired. So that was so MSNBC being so horrible was a huge gift to the Young Turks and me. And it continues to be, and after Bernie dropped out and decided to back Hillary Clinton, the Young Turks also followed Bernie's lead. And they backed the Hillary Clinton. And Bernie said that, you shouldn't listen to me. The people should make up their own minds. And so I did. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't participate in the two-party duopoly and I couldn't vote for a warmongering corporatist again. I just could which is what gave us Trump. And I was trying to implore people to see beyond one election cycle. You have to think beyond one election cycle. And if you look the way the reason Hillary lost is because they weren't offering the people she needed to come out to vote. She wasn't offering them anything, right? Those same people voted for Barack Obama twice. And then if you read it's in the New York Times, they went to barbershops in Wisconsin and Michigan, in Milwaukee, and they asked minorities, what did you do you regret not voting? They go, we didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, and we don't regret not voting for her. So the people that they think they have a problem with are people like me. The corporate Democrats, the people they have a problem with are the 100 million people who don't come out to vote for their claptrap anymore. It's not working. They voted for Barack Obama twice and their lives got worse and they know it. Yep. So that's really their problem right now. It's not the problem right now isn't, and I just did a critique. Barry Weiss, who writes for the New York Times, was just on Joe Rogan, and she represents what I would consider conventional wisdom. She says, I'm afraid because Donald Trump got his base all riled up. And he got them worked up and they turned out in big numbers for him and he won. He said, they say, I'm afraid that now the Democrats are going to try to do the same thing instead of running a centrist. And I'm like, wow, if only we could run an experiment to see if a centrist could beat Donald Trump. We already did that. They lost. So what they're really saying is we're afraid of a winning strategy. Donald Trump's winning strategy was to play to his base. They're afraid the Democrats will replicate that with a progressive and win. So when I say that the Democrats' first order of business isn't to beat the Republicans, it is to first defeat the person who represents the workers, the progressive candidate. That's a fact. Because that's what they're revealing when they say that. They go, oh my God, if we nominate a progressive and he wins, that will be horrible for them. Yep. And that's what
that changes the game forever.
That's right.
So every single sitting congressperson, senator, all of them are gone.
And let me tell you something. What will happen if Bernie Sanders wins the nomination? If he somehow gets over the cheating, which is coming at him again, and the smears from the corporate media, which will be nonstop. If they don't ignore him, they're smearing him. What's going to happen if he does do that, or Tulsi, or if they both win on a ticket together? There will be a third party the next day, but it will be corporatist.
And all of a sudden, MSNBC will why are we exploring the idea of third parties more often? We should probably,
That's right. Most
we
people claim they want a third party. Well, now that's exactly what will happen.
Like Joe Crowley, remember, like with the Working Families Party with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, there were Democrats coming out and saying, well, I'm going to actually support Joe Crowley, and I encourage you all to keep fundraising. And he kept his fundraising open, and MSNBC and CNN had absolutely nothing to say about it, interestingly enough. So I was going to say, just basically based off of, your rise, Kyle has done extremely well also. Mike Figueredo, and I've benefited from it. Tim Black has benefited from it. A lot of people have benefited from it, but I think that you are in this weird box compared to everybody else. And what I mean by that is, because you and AOC are in these two very unique boxes, because I remember, and everybody does, seeing people trying to physically put you in a box, saying you have to do what we say if you want to continue to be popular. Same thing with AOC. Both of you all gave the establishment the middle finger, and now AOC is without question the most popular politician in the country, bar none, not even close, to the point where Ben Shapiro literally tries to leech off of her popularity.
Yes.
And then on the YouTube side, the news side, we see the same thing with you, where you see people, even people, quote unquote, progressives, trying to leech off of your popularity to the point where they can't even get they can't hit over 1,000 views without mentioning your name, no matter how many subscribers they have. And I feel like if the Democratic establishment wants to learn how to win an election, well, maybe you should go to the comment sections in the responses on Twitter to AOC and Jimmy Dore, because they're telling you what they want. This popularity didn't manifest out of nowhere. They're saying what people want to hear, and they're doing what people expect them to do. And you haven't, the answers are right there in front of them. And it's like they're purposely going out of their way to ignore them, in my opinion.
I started listening to Post Malone, and I don't know if you know who my mom was
I know who Post Malone is. I know he is.
Shit done changed. That's all. And, I worked so hard, I forgot how to vacation. They never had the dedication. And I'll tell you,
I can't believe you know these lyrics.
Haters saying that we changed. Yeah, since we made it. Yeah, we made it.
Yep, you should. Did you hear the song? Did you hear the song with him and 21 Savage, the guy who just recently got arrested and it's being confirmed basically that he got arrested by ICE for speaking out against Trump?
No, I didn't hear about this.
So he's a Grammy-nominated rapper that made his Grammy is actually with the song he features on with Post Malone. Actually, and I want to say it's a different song, but basically he was born in the UK, moved here when he was 6, and then ICE recently arrested him, like at 26 years old. A week ago, he went on to the Tonight Show, and this is the first time he ever had a performance that's like mainstream. And that's a big deal in the gangster rap community, because it doesn't really happen that often. So he goes up, and in the lyrics of this song, he talks about the border crisis, talks about the kids being locked up in cages at the border, talks about the fact that Flint doesn't have any water, and the fact that not only do they not have any water, but the people were forced to buy their own representation while their government tax dollars were actually used to buy representation for the governor. He talks about this in his song. 5 days later, ICE runs into his house with a raid squad for one person. And then ICE was like, oh, he came here, or he's been here illegally this whole time. Turned out wasn't exactly the truth. What happened was he went back to the UK at like 6 or 7 years, or was it 6? No, in 2005, he went back to the UK to visit family, came back. He didn't know, it's his parents were the ones in charge of this stuff. He didn't know his mom did not renew his visa. And so they're using the visa that he used to get back to the UK as the excuse for why they've detained him right now. After that performance. Now, here's where it gets funny. They say, well, he's been running away. Jimmy, he tried to renew his visa as soon as he found out last year in 2017, early 2017. DHS has had his address for over a year and a half, and he's been in constant correspondence with them for over a year and a half.
There is a comedian in New York who literally did a joke about the ICE. And hang on, I'm going to find his name. I'll find it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find this guy.
Don't joke about ICE.
So anyway, I can't find it. I lied. I can't find it. But why am I blanking on his name? He's a very funny guy, but he did a joke about it. And same thing, they came to his house. And I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think they came to his house at like 3 a.m. No, I could be wrong about that, but
Wouldn't be surprising.
I think his name is Joe Flores. Anyway, so don't anybody take anything I'm saying, because this is all coming off the top of my head. I didn't know we were talking about this. But anyway, yeah, that happened.
Wow. So, I mean, and I think that's kind of a revelation to, first of all, remember when Tulsi Gabbard in her campaign speech said we need to take on and stand up to overreaching intelligence agencies? Like, this is what she was talking about. They're literally watching our every move, our every word. And the moment that they get the opportunity, the moment you step out of line, this is what will happen. If you think being rich is going to stop it, 21 Savage, he's only been famous for about 3 years. Fantastic investor. Started financial literacy classes for kids in the hood, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a problem because he literally stopped buying. He stopped buying chains, stopped buying cars and things like that. And then he started investing back into his community, teaching other people from the hood and other rappers how to invest. He's worth $21 million in 3 years as a gangster rapper.
Wow.
That is insane. There are rappers that have been rapping for 10 or 15 years that have never even come close to touching that amount of money. And so that lets you know a lot of people are speculating that it was more than just that comment. It was that comment compounded with everything else, because they've had to have been watching him for them to have moved, like to move on him like that, which is it's scary for people like you and I. Luckily, I mean, we're not, well, I guess you're kind of important. They told people to stop buying stocks because of your commentary, apparently, CNN Money. I remember that when they tagged, even tagged the links.
Niko, if you're forgetting that not only did I control the presidential election, but I had a big hand in the Florida governor election too. People blamed me for Gillum losing, and people also blamed
me.
Come on, you missed that? Did you miss that?
See, look, I was too busy getting blamed for Gillum losing, so I probably. Yeah. So that was true. That really happened, and I'm like, wow. When you're that desperate that you have to blame a fucking YouTuber for the governor for what's happening in politics in Florida. That was so that's what happens though when with the corporatization of someone's brain, you start it just becomes normal. You do mental gymnastics, so I don't know what's going on with those people. But yeah, so people, you would think if Susan Sarandon and me and Jill Stein really had as much power as they say we did over elections, don't you think those people would start being fucking nicer to us and start helping us? Right? I know the way they pretend like
maybe they would start courting our votes and asking for our support instead of what they do, flip us off and call us fucking traitors to our country. We'll never fucking support. I'm like, your voter outreach to progressives really sucks.
Ask Bernie Sanders how that feels. I mean, think about it. Hey, Bernie, your policies are untenable. Nobody would ever want those things. People hate them. We need to be more center of the party. Hey, Kamala, what are you going to run on? Whatever Bernie's running on, because he's the most popular person in the party. But why wouldn't we just elect Bernie Sanders? Because he's not me. What do you mean? Come on. That's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing this evolution, in my opinion, where independent journalism is becoming people. I pay attention to numbers a lot, just because I like to see patterns. People have no idea that, like, your channel, for example, your channel does more off of 2 videos. You'll have more hits than CNN will have the entire day, running segment after, and they put up like 10 or 15 videos a day.
So
they know that
YouTube also has changed their algorithms to push the mainstream news. So they're also trying to. They have the algorithms used to try to help us, but now it actually works to try to boost the mainstream news. That's what YouTube TV is about too. It's so funny. They have YouTube TV. And I don't know if anybody's going to watch YouTube. They're not so far, because the whole point of YouTube is that people don't like fucking TV and they go to YouTube
Yeah.
And so now YouTube wants to be more like TV. That seems like a losing strategy, but you know, it's a corporation. So they normally do things that are counterproductive because they're fucked up and stupid, and they're distanced from what's really happening with the people, and they're always chasing dollars, right? So they're about the next quarter's profits. And right now they think it's better to suppress independent news because they think independent news scares away advertisers from YouTube. What scares away advertisers from YouTube is hit pieces from CNN and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, because they know that YouTube has all the viewers and we're taking their advertising money away.
We really are.
So they're overreacting. They're overreacting to hit pieces, and they're suppressing. So they did YouTube. You won, and they're forgetting that they won. You beat CNN. You beat MSNBC. You beat the Washington Post. And now what they're trying to do is push those very fucking places.
And if they were smart, they would have embraced it. Like, hell yeah. Come see us. Like, look at all the money we're making over here on this side. Yeah. TV sucks. That's why they're hating, but they didn't do that.
You know, the average age of the MSNBC viewers like 67 years old. CNN, it's like 70s. Fox News, it's like 72. Whoa. So you know, if you can go look at the analytics on our YouTube channel. All of my viewers, the majority of them are in the demo, as they call, 25 to 54. That's the bulk of my views. So we have the young viewers that they don't have, and so that's why they're trying to discredit YouTube News. And YouTube should stand up for their independent news producers. But again, they're a corporation, so they're buckling to the smears, and they're pushing CNN and ABC and all that shit. Those are the same people they're actually in competition with for advertising. Absolutely. But listen, Niko, I hate to have to cut this short, but I do have a 1 p.m. I have to get to. But this has been a blast being with you. So thanks for having me on, and good luck with your show.
And thank you very much for coming on, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Okay, pal. Take care.
Peace.